You know today's going to be a great day if it starts off with me doing tarot. Okay. It looks like we're going through what I want to say is a lot of healing, but more so it's like just a little bit of change, honestly. Because we have the Eight of Cups here. The Eight of Cups is just really letting go of something that is no longer for you. It's something that's no longer really bringing you any happiness, any contentment. It's not adding anything into your life, and so you have to be like, okay, this is no longer bringing me into the direction that I want to go into, and then you have to release it, and walk away. And sometimes that walking away part can be a little bit difficult, but understanding that you're walking away because it's not what's for you, So you have to find what is for you. That's what's incredibly important in that card. And then we also have the Star card, and the Star card is a card where it's like you have to take care of yourself. You have to make sure you're doing okay. And a lot of times this is like also on the physical level, taking care of yourself. Like, okay, have I been eating enough? Have I been drinking water? Have I been getting enough sleep? Have I been physically making sure that I am okay? Like, am I taking care of myself? That's what this card is. It asks you to nurture and pay attention to yourself, and that could also be one of the reasons why you have to like walk away from this situation, is because not only is it like not emotionally adding anything to your life, but it could be making the taking care of yourself part incredibly difficult, and not allowing you to spend any time focusing on you. So that's something that we're currently in the middle of. And then on top of that, we have the Hermit card in the reverse, and the Hermit card in the reverse does this thing where it's consistently stuck in its head. It's worried about the 101 different possibilities of how a situation could end up, and it's just constantly reflecting and internalizing and thinking about every situation. And what happens is it leads this card to sometimes just be very stressed and overwhelmed, but also it just makes it feel very alone, and isolated. And part of that is because it's too stuck in its head. A lot of the thoughts that are going on aren't 100% accurate. And so this card is like, okay, well, we need to get out of our head a little bit, and we need to focus on the reality of the situation. We need to focus on the facts. We need to focus on what's going on right here, right now. Because if you focus too much on your thoughts and you don't focus on the reality of the situation, you're not going to see the situation accurately for what it is, So there's like the need to get out of your head and come into the present, so that way you can leave behind the things that aren't serving you, that aren't good for you, and that aren't bringing you any happiness, And I think that's why we also have this Justice card here, because the Justice card is a card of balance. It's a card of being fair. It's a card of feeling heard and understood, And sometimes in order to bring in that balance and that fairness, you have to create a little bit of distance, in order to feel heard and understood and to feel justified in what's going on. You need to create a little bit of distance, and you need to start focusing on yourself. But regardless, sometimes this card in general is like, if people have been arguing, or if there's been a conflict, usually this card says that, okay, the truth is going to come out, and your point is going to be seen as what is right, But it's just more so about balance and equality, and just things being fair is really what that card is. So that's what that is. And then the last card that we have here is the Lovers card. Most people take this card as like two people in a relationship, which it can have that meaning, but more accurately, what this card is two people who have an understanding, like two people who have an agreement, two people who are on the same page, and they're able to like come to terms and be like, okay, I'll do this and you do that, and almost sort of come into like a contract, sort of, where it's like, I'm gonna help you out, you help me out, where things feel more so fair, And what it really could be is like, if there is an argument, if things have been a little bit rocky, people coming to an understanding of, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do this and you're going to do that, and both people are agreeing on those things. Does that make sense? If you need me to re-explain anything, I'd be more than happy to, but hopefully that all makes sense. You know, absolutely, you are more than welcome. Weekend lives are the vibe. Exactly. We love it. Sometimes, every once in a while, people will be like, what's your sign? And I will be like, I'm a Libra. And then I'll be like, I have all of the air in my chart, you know? I'll be like, I'm a Libra, Aquarius, which is just, it just means I'm a huge airhead, you know? In my head, I don't give off Scorpio vibes. But actually, I've been asked that a couple of times. I think it's because I have a Scorpio Mercury. I think that's what it is. The Scorpio Mercury is what gets people. They're like, ooh, what? It makes people think that I'm a Scorpio when I'm not a Scorpio. But I get it. I get it. I feel like it's the bluntness, you know? I just be blunt sometimes with it all. The thing is, I don't really ever do yes or no's, right? Just because it gets really chaotic and it gets overwhelming, and a lot of times when you do like the free readings, people will just consistently go from live to live to live looking for a specific answer, and they won't really take the time to like marinate on what you've told them. So it's like, number one, I don't really do free readings for my benefit, but I also do it for your benefit, you know? So that way you're adequately receiving the information. How intriguing. So the very first thing that I see here is the Seven of Pentacles, which the Seven of Pentacles is actually like a tired card. It's one of those cards where you feel like you've been putting in a whole bunch of work and a whole bunch of effort. You've been feeling like you've been trying to make something happen or build something up, and it's just not happening the way that you want it to happen, you know? And at some point in time, you're just like, why isn't what I'm doing working? You're like, I'm trying to do this. I'm putting in all this work and effort, and you're not seeing it materialize the way that you think it should materialize. And part of this card, when this card happens, I tell people that it's important to take a step back, because a lot of the times it's your own expectations that are getting in the way of seeing that growth. Because sometimes the way things are supposed to happen aren't the way that we think they are, you know? So when you try and put things in a box of like, this is how I think it should go and this is what should be happening, you're limiting yourself, you know? So sometimes what you need to do is take a small step back, regroup, refocus, and then come back with no expectations. Just let it do what it do. Because sometimes things just need to go in their own way, you know? See what happens. And I promise you it's still going to be pretty good, honestly. Another thing is we also don't have very good clarity right now. Like right now, things are very unclear. We're not able to see the situations the way that they actually are. Our perception's off. And in this card right here, this card is feeling stuck, feeling trapped, not being able to see a way out, you know? And part of that is because you don't have that perspective and you don't have that clarity. Because if you did have that clarity, you'd see that the way out, the answer to the problems is actually kind of right in front of your face. But because you don't have that clarity, you can't see it, which is why in this card, like, we have to take that step back and regain that perspective. Well, it's also going to unlock a couple of answers for us. So like taking a step back, refocusing, just rejuvenating, meditate if you meditate, going for walks if you go for walks, like whatever you do to like bring in a sense of peace and calm for you and like clear your head, that is going to help allow you to see things the way that you need to see things. What's also interesting, this is my jam, I love that. What's also interesting is we have the Five of Cups here, which is a loss card, which I'm assuming this loss is because you have a lot of new things recently. It's more like, okay, I no longer have this. Like this card could be like the loss of the things that are familiar and not necessarily there's music playing, not knowing there's music playing. But yeah, it could be just the loss of leaving things behind, and sometimes that leaving things behind can be really tough, and sometimes we can get stuck in what we no longer have. And so this card is just a reminder of, yes, we do have that loss, but don't forget that there are still good things, you know, that there are still amazing things that you're having, and you still have a lot of good that you can appreciate. So this card is that reminder to appreciate the good that's around you and not just only focus on what you don't have, because it's really easy to focus on the negative, you know? That's what that is. And I feel like these two cards might be career-wise specifically, but we have the Queen of Wands here, and the Queen of Wands is a nurturing card, and more accurately, this one is a card where it's like nurture your passions, nurture your desires, so that way you can see them grow and flourish, you know? Like, this is one of those cards where you're like, okay, let me put in the work, let me put in the effort, let me make sure that I'm making sure this has what it needs to develop into something that I'm really going to enjoy in the future. You know, even if you don't see it being what it needs to be now, putting in the work and effort now is going to yield results later. And that's what this card is. And then we have the King of Pentacles in the reverse. And the King of Pentacles in the reverse, it lacks stability. It lacks comfortability. It lacks safety. It lacks just that feeling of like, okay, I feel safe, I feel stable. Which makes sense, especially if you've just moved and like things are a lot of new. Sometimes our sense of safety and stability can be a little wonky, and so we have to reestablish those things. So I feel like with this card, we need to reestablish the foundation of not only who we are, but like also like just a sense of grounding in general, where it's like, okay, this is something that I can trust, this is something that's going to be constant, this is something that's going to bring me a sense of safety. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions about anything for me on that one. I agree. Mathematics, evil. Whoever invented them, jail for life. Okay, because who thought that was a good idea? Who thought that that was a good idea? Who looked at numbers and said, ah, yes, multiply, divide, square roots, cosine, sine, tangent? Wrong. Wasn't it ancient Greece? I don't like them anyways. Mermaid man voice, evil. Mermaid Man, when he's just constantly saying evil like that, will always crack me up. What did ancient Greece do? I don't know. I don't know. Sounds like a bunch of white people, and you know, I think that's enough said. I think that's enough said. Intangible. Someone bored. Who was it? Greeks? No, really, because the Greeks, I feel like the Greeks just did the most craziest stuff for no good reason. They be greasing. The Greeks be greasing.